Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from thousands of successful individuals from around the world. I'm your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very senior and accomplished professional from the UK, Sam Cande. Sam, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Sam is the Chief Executive Officer of Responsible Futures. She's also the founder of Sustain Talks podcast and the Responsible Futures webinars. So, Sam, before we get into talking sustainability and responsible futures, tell me a little bit about your own background and what got you interested in sustainability.
Yeah, so I was working in the events industry for 20 years, running some of the largest exhibitions and trade shows. But 10 years ago, I was the director of Sustain magazine. And that's when I sort of first found my interest in sustainability. And we were talking about building sustainable buildings. I then launched an exhibition which was about building sustainable homes, but I was there for a few years and then decided to move into another industry and another exhibition, which was the Business Travel Show and Travel Technology Europe. So I ran that for about 5 years, and in that time I actually launched and founded a not-for-profit called Level Women at the time when we launched, and that was about helping women to take a seat at the table, be heard. It was really at the beginning of the Me Too movement, or before the Me Too movement, and I really enjoyed being part of that. But it taught me something that, you know, generally women do not apply for roles unless they can do 95% of the role, and men will apply for roles if they can do 60% of the role. And it actually made me apply for a role to become country manager of one of the technology brands at Expedia, and I got the job. And 2.5 years there, but part of the technology we had, we measured the carbon footprint of flights, and that's when I got back into sustainability. But after 2.5 years, I just wanted to do something more. I was being pulled into sustainability and pulled into social responsibility, and I just decided that this really was time. Actually, it was just before COVID, and it was like before I think even sustainability has got as large as it has now. And I decided to launch Responsible Futures.
Amazing.
And yeah.
Fantastic. So let's talk Responsible Futures now. Tell me, what do you do in this organization?
So we started 1.5 years ago. Basically, we educate, inspire, and guide businesses to become more sustainable and more socially responsible. And we try to simplify it. And we do that through consulting, through webinars, through training, and through my podcast, and also through just putting content out and having the conversation. It's quite different when you own a small business, then you're able to put a lot more content out there than going through when you work in a larger organization and you have to check everything that you're saying all the time. Yeah.
So give me an example of some of the work that you have been doing on sustainability for a small business, say.
Yeah, so we like for a small business, we really like getting them to start, do something, start measuring. Once you start measuring and you can see how you measure, then you can reduce. But it's actually about, so I work with an organization called CSR Accreditation as well. And they have a framework that follows environment, workplace, community, and philanthropy. So when you look through everything that you do, whether it's measuring your carbon footprint or whether it's becoming a more diverse and inclusive business, it all, I think sustainability and social responsibility is a holistic approach. But no business ever didn't get recognized for doing good. And doing good as a business, it's now more important than ever to be sustainable and socially responsible, because you're going to attract new employees, you're going to engage with your stakeholders more authentically. And you know, the thing is that the issues with planet and people at the moment, we really have to think about what's going on around the world and not
well said. Well said. You also speak about keeping sustainability and social responsibility at the heart of conversations. Help me understand the combination of sustainability and social responsibility.
Yeah, so sustainability is how you can be more sustainable.
Correct.
But that's not just being sustainable as in, you know, it's thinking about how you live your life every single day. So what you buy, how you consume, what you eat, how you travel, but also I believe in a sustainable economy. And, you know, I think I used to work for a company where I would jump on and off a flight every single other week. I was in a country, I was going to events. You know, I didn't even consider the impact of my travel. Now in the last year, I've got it on one plane once, and only you know, a short distance to another country. But I think like the way that I think about my life and what I do has completely changed. And I think when you just going back to the question, keeping sustainability and social responsibility at the heart of conversation, I think that everyone should be talking about this and everyone should be leading with this, because if you do, then good will come of it. If you you know, pretty much I drive people mad. I talk about it all day, and constantly challenging people and questioning what they're doing and what they're saying and how they're doing it. And, you know, I know it's not for everyone. And, you know, I don't think that I'm up there with the hardcore activists, but definitely, you know, in that middle ground and support.
Very interesting. Very interesting. My next question to you, Sam, is that based on all the work you've done on sustainability, what are some of the areas which are become big challenges that you are addressing? I mean, everything is a challenge when it comes to sustainability, but what are some of the areas you're working on?
So for me, it's about working with businesses, because I think that this is my personal view. I don't think that if we are dependent on our governments around the world, I don't think that the world is going to be saved in enough time. We need to drastically cut carbon emissions by 2030 in over 7 years.
Correct.
And the people that are going to make the biggest difference are the businesses and the big businesses. And of course, the oil companies as well. You know, we have to make sure that we keep the conversation going, and we have to highlight the issues that are going on around the world. You know, people often say, I hear a lot in the UK, well, I'm in the UK and there's nothing I can do about it and I'm not going to make a difference. But when you look at how companies and businesses in the UK inspire other businesses around the world and in the US as well, you know, they're some of the largest businesses and some of the most money around the world comes from businesses in these countries. So if we start to take it seriously, then we can do something about it. The Microsofts and the Amazons and the Coca-Colas, you know, they've had a lot of negativity around them sponsoring COP27. And actually, if we don't get those companies and the oil companies to change their way of working, if we don't go in there and get them to do different, then we've got no chance.
Very interesting. And given all the work that you've been doing, how seriously is sustainability being taken in corporate boardrooms, or is there a lot of lip service?
I think it's taken more seriously now, you know, things like COP. I don't know about you and your listeners, but I don't think before COP26 people had really heard of COP, unless you were heavily in sustainability. I remember reading a survey from PwC they did with over 700 board directors, and they found that 50, and I think that was this year, 55% of directors are reporting that ESG issues are part of the board's agenda. But as I said, whilst every board might not be having the conversation as a priority, they are having the conversation, because 5 years ago they weren't, and they are now. If you have a look on, if you look up at any company and you click on the about, or you go to the bottom of the page, you'll find their information on sustainability, social responsibility, on ESG. That's like 95% of companies that you look at their website, you'll find that. You never found that information before. And then, you know, I don't know if you heard about Patagonia, the CEO announced this year they were giving all their profits away to environmental efforts, and companies like that. And you see that, it's so inspiring. And I think that then the boards realize that the good can come out of it. And I guess in much larger companies, then obviously they have to do their ESG reporting.
Very interesting. And yet, you know, I was speaking to somebody else the other day, Sam, and they actually mentioned that a very ambitious GDP growth target for a country, or a very ambitious profit target for a company, could actually contradict the plan for sustainability. I'd love to get your thoughts.
It's not really my area. When it comes into that, I don't think that, again, I would, but my thoughts, I'd just go back and I'll take it from a company level, which then, you know, goes into a country. And you only have to look at Patagonia and the profits that they make, and, you know, good comes out of being sustainable. You save money. You know, people think being sustainable is going to cost them more, but actually it doesn't. It saves them. You know, if you switch your lights off, if you turn your heating down, if you don't travel as much, then these kind of things, they're gonna save you money. So I think, like, you know, when you look at that on a country level, by being more sustainable, you are going to, and also people invest in sustainability now, and invest in, they want more sustainable products. You've only got to look at, you know, every single advert on the television, radio and internet. Now there's a sustainable message to it.
Well said. My next question to you is on the younger generation of leaders, the millennials and the Gen Zs, who are now actually bringing in a breath of fresh air into most companies. And I'm from the baby boomers generation. I'd love to get your thoughts on how are the younger leaders changing the way businesses are thinking of sustainability.
Yeah. Well, I'm also not a millennial, you know, and but I see that they are the most ethical and sustainability conscious
Yeah.
generation. They really are. You know,
Mm,
they prioritize practicality over profit.
mm,
They're more willing to spend money on products and services that are socially and environmentally responsible. But I think the other key thing is their work habits
mm,
and companies that they want to work for. And there's a real issue with attrition in the UK,
mm,
attrition rates and people leaving their companies and wanting to go. They want to go and work for a company that
mm,
is doing good. You know, they're checking. I think there was a survey done that 80% of millennials, when they're looking for a new job, will check the sustainability and social responsibility of a company first.
mm,
They'll have a look on things like Glassdoor for reviews of that company and the way that they treat people.
mm,
They want to be valued, and they want to, you know, you look at the people like Greta Thunberg and Elizabeth Wahuti, and you know, those voices are really, really, really being heard. And you know, they're the generation that are speaking out the most, because they're the ones that are going to be so affected by climate change and by sustainability.
Interesting. So one more question on sustainability, and then I'll move to your podcast. Uh, different countries, different cultures handle sustainability very differently. I know from the country that I come from, everything is recycled. Every nature is, treated like mother, and so on and so forth. What are your thoughts on how does culture impact views of society on sustainability?
I think that, you know, you make a good point in you know, depending where you come from, you're going to be affected more by climate change in hotter countries than you might be in the UK. Although I think what we're starting to see in Europe is we're seeing more effects of it. So whilst originally, culturally, you might be thinking about your families in India or in Africa that have really, really suffered from climate change. Now, even in Europe, we're starting to see the effects of climate because, you know, the floods that we had our hottest year on record this year. So I think culturally it's more urgent in other countries, but people only do something about it when it's tangible, when they can see it for themselves. So, you know, for a long, long time, been like, it's not our problem. It's not going to affect us. I think now the effects of the climate crisis are really, really coming out. So, but what people don't really understand is, you know, when those countries get to a point, which they will in the next 7-8 years, when they become inhabitable, and, you know, there's going to be mass migration. And that mass migration, you know, we're already seeing, are going to go to countries where the climate crisis is not as bad. So, you know, they are going to be affected in time, and it's just something that you're more aware of because you're seeing it more often.
Well said. So let me now move to your podcast, Sustain Talks. Tell me about your podcast and what are some of the topics you have covered?
Sure. So it's funny because I created Sustain Talks. I was having a conversation with someone. I was having a private meeting, and we were talking about the climate crisis. And, you know, this is somebody who'd been in sustainability for 30 years and was having such a deep and meaningful conversation. And I got to the end and I said, I wish I could have shared this conversation with everybody I know. It's been so important. And he said, you can. Why don't you do a podcast? And that's how Sustain Talks came about. And so now I just put it out. I love doing it. I love having the conversation. I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah.
We talk about anything from the climate crisis. We've done banning fossil fuel adverts, sustainable furniture, sustainable technology, ESG, net zero. I do a lot around mental health and diversity and inclusion. They're topics that are close to my heart.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wonderful. And if you were to look at sustainability, based on all your experience, what would you say each one of us as individuals can do every day to help our planet?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, you need to educate yourself. And I think that's really important, that, before you make throwaway comments about it's someone else's responsibility, really try to understand it, really try to engage. And learn as much as you can and talk about it. What we're doing now, I think the more conversation, the best thing about COP27 is my feed is filled with it. It's absolutely filled with sustainability. So have the conversation and think about what you're doing, and think really, about what you spend, where you go, what you do, how you live your life. I put my light on for this conversation, but the second we're finished, the light goes off. I don't have my heating on. If I'm cold, I put a blanket or a cardigan, and so it's just really thinking about how you live your life and how you spend it.
Well said. And Sam, my last question to you, and this for the many, many people who will listen to our conversation. What would you say are 3 lessons you want our viewers and listeners to take away from your own journey and from our conversation?
I've kind of just said it. I think, as I say, like, have the conversation, educate yourself, reach out to others, connect with people, follow people that are doing good. Fill your feed with your social media feed with sustainability and social responsibility people, and subscribe to Sustain Talks and to Responsible Futures.
Yep.
Have a listen. We've got not as many as you, but we've been doing the podcast for about a year now, and it's on Spotify and iTunes, and on our YouTube channel is Responsible Futures. But we've got there's a lot of content, and happy for people to connect with me on LinkedIn if they're interested in finding out more about how they can be more sustainable. So they can reach out to me on LinkedIn.
Wonderful. And on that note, Sam, thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about your own journey, about responsible futures, about sustainability, about your podcast. Thank you again, and good luck.
And thank you. It really has been an honor. I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and I hope it makes a difference, and I hope it was a good conversation.
I'm sure it will. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.